Teacher Brett here, and today I was going to talk to you about kind of what I have found the differences to be between teaching with Magic Ears and teaching with other companies. So I teach for a few companies now. I taught at all three today, and Magic Ears is definitely different in the than some of the other companies. It has a lot of similarities. You know, you're going to want definitely to bring the energy levels. You still need to use the props, but there are some things to be aware of that are different about Magic Ears than you might be used to when you're teaching at VIPKID. Oop, there's my phone. When you're teaching at VIPKID or some of the other companies. So I thought we'd go over those here today. The first thing that is a big difference and still the one that I'm trying to get used to the most is the noise policy. So they have a zero tolerance for noise policy. They are teaching a groups of students. So you have several different students there. If they've got noise going on in the background, TV, parents walking around, anything like that, you're supposed to mute the individual students and unmute them. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of getting used to, and I find it very difficult myself. I find like I spend a lot of time focusing on the noise and where's the noise coming from, trying to mute them, and that can be a little bit tricky because then you're losing your train of thought while you're trying to teach. So the noise policy is definitely probably the biggest adjustment that I've had to make, is trying to sort that out. They seem much more focused on it than any of the other companies I work for, even the ones that do group lessons. So they're very focused on the noise policy, and what I see in the different message boards is, that's often the common complaint that they're getting from parents is that there's noise in the background. So you'll definitely want to take some time on that. There are some workshops. Carly over at Magic Ears is doing a workshop right now on noise policy, so it's definitely something that you'll want to look into and take that if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that noise policy, because that's definitely tricky. The next thing that I find that's different with teaching at Magic Ears is the actual content itself. So the content at Magic Ears is very different. It is a lot of repetition. So less focus on having the students read. Most of the other companies I worked for, they try and get the students reading themselves as quickly as possible. Magic Ears really focuses more on the pronunciation. So they want you to do the reading first and have the student repeat after you for quite a while, even when the students are kind of starting to read themselves. They're wanting the student to hear that pronunciation, so that is going to be a big deal for them, is you doing the reading, them kind of repeating after you. So that also can take some getting used to if you're used to having the student read a lot on their own. Let's take a look. Oh, they're also the content. If you work for VIPKID, you will know that we throw in a lot of, they do the Common Core and they throw in a lot of extra stuff. Social studies, science, math are kind of in the lesson. It doesn't work that way with as much with Magic Ears. So there's definitely less of that kind of content. They really focus on, it's usually a few vocabulary words, a few sentence structures that you're repeating over and over throughout the lesson, and you're doing different examples with those vocabulary words and structures. So that's definitely different as well, teaching there. I find there's less need to extend. Because you have 4 students, that takes a lot of your time, especially because you're bringing them up individually to work on pronunciation for some of those words. So you have a lot less time to do extension type activities. So, you have to be careful with how much, extra you try and throw in there, or else you're not going to get done on time, or students aren't going to get the opportunity to practice. So there's definitely less opportunity to extend with the students. For that. So that definitely, is a difference with some of the other companies. I find I'm, trying to shoot for about that 1 minute per slide. So I'm trying to extend a lot. Well, when you have 4 students, trying to get through, minute and a half for a slide, you don't have that much time because you're trying to get through it with 4 different students. So it's definitely less extension, which is nice. It's definitely more, you just kind of are going through there a lot less. They can be nice to not have to do all that extension. But on the downside, there is less of an opportunity to really connect with the students. So when you're doing one-on-one, or when you're working for a company, some of the companies have, like, you have the same group of 4 or 5 students, several times in a row. You get to know the students. That's not really how it works with Magic Ears. You're often seeing different students. You might have a repeat student, but it's usually different students every time. So without those extension questions, without those repeat lessons, you don't get to know them kind of on a more personal level as much. So you kind of go in blind. The one thing I like about getting to know my students is, like, I can look at my schedule and see, oh, I have Sally. I already know Sally is a great reader, or Sally is struggling with her colors, so we're going to spend extra time. I kind of already know that going in, so I can plan the lesson accordingly. You don't know that with Magic Ears. You're kind of flying blind at first till it takes a couple of minutes to kind of figure out, okay, which students know what, so that you can adjust for them. So those are definitely some of the differences I have found. I also find with Magic Ears, there's kind of less autonomy, if you will. They have teacher directions for every slide. They want you to follow those teacher directions. VIPKID, you can kind of, as long as you're meeting the objectives, you can kind of tweak things and make it work for the student. Same thing with USKID. They don't even give you teacher directions. You can kind of make your own, plan the lesson the way you want to, as long as you're meeting those objectives. Magic Ears has teacher directions that they want you to follow. If you do not follow those, that can get you into trouble. They are much more apt to be watching your classes. So since they're a smaller company, they have a lot of people reviewing the classes. You're much more likely to have feedback on your classes, especially since during those first 10 classes, when you first start working for them, that supervisor is, making sure that you're doing everything on point. So you're going to get a lot of feedback on that. So you definitely have more people watching your classes than, say, VIPKID. We've got like 40,000 teachers now. They do not have the time or the energy to watch your classes unless parents are making a lot of complaints about you. So there's definitely less kind of freedom to do what you want in those lessons as some of the other companies, and definitely more kind of supervision, which is nice, especially if you're starting out and you're not really familiar with a lot of online teaching. That can be really nice to be getting a lot of feedback, make sure you're doing what they want. But if you have been doing this a while, it can be a little bit frustrating because you feel like you're kind of trapped and you can't go outside or, adjust for the students. That sort of thing does make it a little bit difficult if you've been doing this for a while. So those are kind of the big differences that I noticed between especially VIPKID and Magic Ears. But all the other companies that I have worked for are pretty more similar to VIPKID in that respect. So Magic Ears definitely is a little bit different. So it does take some getting used to. They do have those 10 classes. You're limited, to only being able to teach in 2 slots a day. So it does give you more time, to kind of focus on making sure that you're adjusting for what that they are looking for. So that's my thoughts. Those are just my opinions on what I've noticed to be the differences between some of the companies. Hope that helps you out, especially if you're trying to make the transition from another company to Magic Ears, to be aware of kind of what those differences are. I hope I see you guys soon. Happy teaching. Bye, guys.
Subscribe to my channel.